This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's not every day we get to look at something different. In a sea of seemingly alike Android smartphones, we have the LG G Flex here. Curved 6-inch display. It's actually a flexible phone to a certain extent. It's not exactly a rubber band. I'm going to show you. I'm going to put some real force on it to flex it, but we're going to look at it now. So here it is, the LG G Flex. I could make endless jokes about the banana phone, the phone that literally rocks. But as you can see, it actually doesn't rock too much. It's pretty stable on the table. If you're interacting with the phone, touching the screen, even near the top here, it's not going to bounce around on you a whole lot. This curved display is the interesting thing about this phone. 6-inch plastic AMOLED display. Plastic because it's actually a flexible display. It's not just curved glass. We've seen that in some Nexus that had very subtle curves to them. This is actually a flexible display. When you look at it, it looks as sharp and clear as a glass display, so I wouldn't worry about that. And it's supposed to be, well, flexible. If you do this, you don't see it moving very much. You really have to press down hard, and that's supposed to be okay. See, I'm almost flattening it. I'm using a lot of force. You probably wouldn't do that to your phone, but if it's in your pocket, and we'll give you a pocket demo, that is a good thing, and it returns to shape pretty quickly. Now, LG said they could have made it even more flexible. You can see it's still rising up a little bit, by the way, but they didn't want it to feel cheesy either, too flippy floppy. The back here, well, that's traditional LG ultra glossy plastic for you. Reflects a whole lot. You know, it doesn't pick up fingerprints as much as you might think, but the thing loves dust, lint. Oh my God, everything sticks to it. But what's interesting about this is it has a polymer coating on it that's supposed to be scratch resistant. Now, it doesn't take a lot of G-force, so don't take an X-Acto knife to this or take a key and really grind it in and expect it to deal with that. It's more like keys bumping into it in your pocket. Now, I'm trying to use my fingernail. I got a pretty decent fingernail on there. And they say that any scratches that you put on there, if you rub it like a magic genie lamp, it's going to go away. Basically, it takes some heat, maybe a little friction is going to help it go away. So far, most of the scratches I've intentionally tried to put on here with keys and things have healed. There's only one that I can still see a little bit of. When you look at the back, around the edges and near the ports, you can actually see where the coating ends. At first, I thought there was a glossy film on top of this for shipping, but no, that's not that. Do not try to peel off the protective coating, though to me it does seem pretty darn impossible. When we're looking at the phone, down here is your usual micro USB port. There's our headphone jack. Sides, gee, nothing. Nothing again. Got our micro SIM card slot there. You use a paper clip to pop that out if you need to access it. Up here, just microphone hole. There's also one at the bottom. Why is that? Because they've done what they did with the G2. Here's your volume controls, and that's your power sleep button. If you like that feature on the G2 or that design, you'll like it here. If you never warmed up to it, I never quite did, then you won't like it here. The idea is, regardless of which hand you hold this with, your finger's going to kind of fall right around there, and the power button is raised a little bit so you can feel it. The volume buttons do dip down, but I do find myself turning it around and checking what I'm pressing, especially if I'm doing something like watching a movie and I'm really immersed in it. I don't want to accidentally hit the power button and, well, kill my movie experience instead. Same 13 megapixel shooter with LED flash on the back as we had on the G2. That's a fine camera. As you can see here, we have the AT&T version. Again, this will be available on Sprint and AT&T the end of January. $299 on contract, $100 more than your average flagship phone, and it'll also be available on T-Mobile in the beginning of February. And they quote their monthly payment pricing, which is about $28 a month. We have a speaker hole right over here, and a front that's dominated by the display. Like the LG G2, they call it their bezel-less design. Now, obviously, there's bezel top and bottom, but there's very little on the sides. Now, I have reasonably large hands, hence I can hold this 6-inch phone pretty easily in my hand. And I find it's pretty easy because the display comes to the edges to accidentally always launch things I didn't mean to launch by touching the screen. Honestly, I'd like a little bit more bezel on the sides, even if it doesn't look quite as nifty, modern, and pretty. Your earpiece, of course, is up here. Big phone, so the problem is, are the microphones too far from your mouth, or is the earpiece far from your mouth? The curve is supposed to help with that, and if you put it against the face, well, it does actually help. It feels a little bit more ergonomic, but nonetheless, voice quality was just okay on this phone. I really don't think it has to do with the microphone and speaker placement, because I've used the Lumia 1520, which is a 6-inch giant slab of a phone, and didn't really have a problem with voice quality. I think it's just inherent to the phone that it's okay, not great. Speaking of the Lumia, let's do a little size comparison. So here we have it next to the Nokia Lumia 1520. Nokia is not known for doing the most compact of designs, but still, it is a little more petite than the HTC One Max, shall we say. And you can see you save a little bit of height there, even there's a little bit of width difference going with the flat, versus the curved model. Obviously, normal versus curved. The side profile is going to be quite different on that. One thing I've said about the Lumia 1520, I adore this phone. This is the greatest phone that I'll never use, because even for me, this is just getting to be more of a tablet. It's too big. The curves, not just the curve of the display itself going this way, but the curves along the edges really make it a little more ergonomic and easy to hold, and I don't find it as difficult to live with the Flex. Now if we compare it to the LG G2, which is just a 5.2 inch, now that's considered small suddenly, huh? Display, you can see the difference in size right there. Same buttons on the back design. Of course, the LG G2 is just your normal flat phone. LG G2 has an IPS display, though. As IPS displays go, you can see the viewing angles aren't the super widest on it, but it's a very nice high contrast full HD display. Aha! This is a 720p display. That apparently is the highest resolution they can get going right now in a flexible OLED panel. It is OLED. That means you get really deep blacks and very nice rich colors. I was watching a movie and could see color differentiation I really never noticed on most other smartphones. At the same time, is it super duper sharp? Not so much. 245 ppi, so we're not talking something hideous, but... So here we have Google Play Books, and we've got a book on the screen right here, and if we zoom in and look at the text closely, it's not going to be as smooth and gorgeous looking as it would be on a full HD display, especially when you're stretching 720p up to 6 inches. Now, it's not terrible, it's not bad. One thing I have noticed is a slight blue tint to the display, which the camera really seems to be picking up, and the blue tint is more pronounced at the top. If you're just looking at a white page, you're going to notice it. If you're looking at something with varied colors on it, more busy like a web page, you probably won't notice it. Speed for all things is pretty good on this. This is running on the same hardware as the LG G2. That means the quad-core Snapdragon 800 CPU clocked at 2.26 gigahertz, 2 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of internal storage. There is no micro SD card slot on that. So right now that's the top dog for CPUs, and 2 gigs of RAM is pretty good. You don't see much more than that, generally speaking. So power-wise, it's good. A lot of the horsepower cycles could be consumed by LG's very heavy UI, not unlike Samsung TouchWiz. They have touched just about every part of the UI that they possibly could. Happily, it doesn't really seem to bog things down too much. It would be interesting if we could see a Google Play edition of this that wasn't running all of the software, but you can see the icons themselves are customized. When you first get this phone, you're going to get bombarded with a million little tips where they try to tell you how to use all the software they've added on there. Methinks they doth protest or explain too much in this case. When they spend that much time explaining, it usually means there's way too many features and they're not intuitive enough. You can tell I've gotten a little tired of LG's UI. You may love it. You may feel differently. If you do love it, well, you're going to like it just fine on this phone too, because pretty much you're looking at the LG G2 and even the Optimus G Pro experience on here. You see our apps are separated into apps, widgets. You can search. You can actually manage and remove applications from here. We have their customized up here, access to features. We got Q-Slide right there. We got Quick Memo. Q-Slide is their multitasking thing. Press and hold right there. We can say we want to have the browser. Put that up there, and hey, but we want to have Notepad down here. And that's going to tell us more about how to actually use that feature. So it's getting more like Samsung, where you have the side-by-side instead of just the floating transparent widgets if you want. So you can take notes here while you're looking at a web page over here. Certainly not a bad feature. The bigger the screen, the more likely I think people are to use that. And you can see we just drag that down and get rid of it too. And we can drag it back up and make it bigger. So that's pretty handy as well. And if you want to get rid of it, you tap the little teeny tappy thing right there and you hit the X button. You also get a bunch of customized sounds on the phone as well, typically LG sounds on it. And in terms of added software, this is going to depend in part on your carrier. This is the AT&T model. It has lots of AT&T carrier bloat on here. Other than that, not a whole lot of stuff that LG has added. One thing that they have added is their own Quick Theater, which is really just a quick launcher for videos, photos, and YouTube. And this kind of gives you the idea, hey, you're looking at a curved display, right? Curved TVs are all the rage. It certainly makes sense on a curved TV because as TVs get bigger, you're talking a 60-inch TV, it's getting to be like a movie theater. You need some curves. I was doubtful that it was really going to add anything to the experience on a 6-inch display, and I found I actually did enjoy it. And though the phone has glare, as you probably noticed, when you're looking at it, you don't really perceive the glare as much as when you're looking at a flat screen, so I've actually enjoyed it. And we're testing out using the Sony 4K test video here. The phone is strong enough to be able to handle that, even though the resolution is obviously much higher than the internal panel. The colors really do pop on OLED. It's really pleasing experience. Again, the sharpness, it's not going to be a full HD display there, but it's not that bad either. The speakers, as ever, LG has just got wimpy speakers. This is about 2/3 volume right now, and it's not super duper loud. The same thing is true if you use the speakerphone for calls. If you're in a really, really noisy place, it's not going to help you as much as some of the louder phones on the market. And now we're using it for the photo viewer, and this is a sample photo that we took with the camera. Again, it's a good camera. We like the camera on the LG G2 a lot, 13 megapixel, but pretty sharp, good color capture, fast as anything. Good quality there. You know, it's not that bad a screen. I know everybody's going to say 720p, bah humbug. I'd never buy it. If it was 720p and $199 instead of $299 with contract, I would be more sold on it. I gotta admit that, but it's not bad at all. And again, the camera's good. Up front, we have a 2.1 megapixel shooter for better than average video chat quality among Android phones. The top ones are having 2 megapixel or better at this point, so that's very competitive. Other neat features on this: Wi-Fi 802.11ac. It has Miracast support for wireless display. That's a pretty new standard. Probably a lot of you don't have Miracast receivers yet set up in your home theater gear, but if you do, well, good for you. Bluetooth 4.0, NFC, of course, the usual GPS on here, and GSM or CDMA depending on your carrier. LTE, 4G, no matter what. Whatever carrier you have, you're going to get 4G on here, and our 4G speeds were quite good. Now, Dallas has excellent AT&T LTE service, so our numbers are quite good. Your results will depend on your carrier and your region. We'll look at our results in speedtest.net. So here are the results from speedtest.net, the last 2 tests that we've done. Both of these done indoors, one closer to a better tower, obviously. Rockin' speeds. Other software on here from LG, we've got the notebook application that you've seen there. We've got Polaris Office, that's the viewer, not the full Office suite. You can, however, get an Office suite from Google Play, a couple of different models, shall we say, or brands available, running around $15 to $25. Quick Translator, quick remote. This has an AV remote control to control your home theater gear, just like the LG G2, so that's always a nice feature to have. I think that's pretty popular. Supports mobile hotspot, as you would expect. And all the standard Google apps are on board as well. So you get your Gmail, you get both the WebKit web browser, at least on this version from AT&T, because they love to put that on because they have an annoying little browser bar that they like to add on. Chrome is also installed on this. In terms of browser performance, this is a very fast phone, so it's just not going to be a problem whatsoever. And we'll play a test video just so you guys can see how that goes. We'll look at the Xperia Z1S video. And we'll be streaming this over LTE. We do not have Wi-Fi turned on.
Waterproof, and we're going to look at it now. So here it is, finally in the US, the Sony Xperia Z1S. This is Sony's latest flagship, top of the line model.
So there you go, streaming YouTube video just fine. Again, pretty colors, but this is black and white kind of setting here, you can't really tell, but not the sharpest. And how about gamer? We're going to look at a motocross game from Glue Mobile that is free. It's actually more of a tap game than your stand racing game, but it does have pretty graphics, so it's worth giving it a test here. Notice the on-screen buttons here remain as shadows in our game because this does not have capacitive buttons right here. It has on-screen buttons. This is sort of like Guitar Hero only for motocross racing. And anyway, it plays perfectly fluidly. We would expect it to do so because it's got the top CPU currently available with Adreno 330 graphics inside and 2 gigs of RAM. So how about battery life? The battery is sealed inside 3,500 milliamps. That's a pretty big and beefy battery here, and battery life actually is quite good on this. Just like the LG G2 that has a 3,000 milliamp battery, but it is driving a higher resolution display, albeit smaller. Absolutely no trouble making it through the day with moderate to heavy use. I'm sure you could kill it if you used it for navigation for 7 hours straight, if you did nothing but stream YouTube video all day, but in a mix of normal use that includes some streaming, a little game playing, that kind of thing, phone calls, web, email, no problem making it through the day on a charge. In terms of benchmark performance on synthetic benchmarks, Quadrant, it scored 22,323. These are all going to be scores that are typical for other phones running on the same Snapdragon 800 CPU that you're going to hear. 3D Mark, the unlimited test, 16,658. Sun Spider, 1142 on Chrome. Lower numbers are better for this test. Chrome is always slower, and the built-in WebKit browser, 831, actually a bit faster, which is something that we generally see on phones too. So there it is for benchmarks. This guy does just fine. Plenty of speed in-house on the G Flex. In terms of fingerprints, how much has it picked up just while I've been doing this review? You can see it's actually cut down on the glare. Before it was very reflecty, so now it's not quite so bad. Gets a little mucky. Those will clean up just fine. Like I said, it's going to love lint in your pocket though. So you can see the curve comes in handy for things like putting it in your pocket. Now I've got kind of boy cut jeans on because I know you guys say, oh, I have much bigger pockets than your pants. So it goes in there and it actually follows, well, the curve of your bum. So that's kind of a good thing too. You sit on it, you're not laying against the board, you might not crack it. And for the front too, depending on how much of a belly you've got, it could either be appropriate this way, or if you tend to go in a little bit, putting it in the pocket here, like so, it actually kind of follows the dip right here. So, functional use for the curve there. So in the end, what's special about our friend the G Flex here? Well, the fact that it's curvy, and yes, it is flexible. As I noted, you can bend it without breaking it to a certain extent. You can have strong fingers, but you can. And it has a lot of horsepower inside, like today's Android top smartphones do. It's not any different from the LG G2, shall we say, or the Galaxy S4 in terms of its horsepower, its prowess at achieving high CPU requirement tasks, but it's good to know that's inside. So if you're an early adopter and you want to pay that $100 extra up front for the curved display, I think that's really the G Flex's market. That and the 6-inch display. For those of you who like that and don't mind that's only 720p, the curve does take a little of the pain out of using a big phone. So that's the LG G Flex, again going to be available on AT&T, Sprint, and T-Mobile. You're going to pay more up front on Sprint and AT&T, $100 more than usual for a flagship kind of smartphone. And I do like the curved display. I think it is the future probably of phones, at least big ones like this. It doesn't make so much sense to curve an iPhone, obviously, but there's a lot to like about it, but I have my misgivings. Still only 720p display, and LG's UI is getting a little bit overbearing. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full written review and hit that subscribe button.